Nottingham Forest, congratulations, you are Premier League. I'm going to say that again. Nottingham Forest, you are Premier League. Wow. Scott, what a game. It was only 1-0. You know, in 15, 20 years, if you look over the playoff finals, you might think, oh, do you know what? Probably wasn't a great game. Far from it. This had everything. Although, what I will say is that in terms of attempts on target, until the first goal goes in, there wasn't any. But what a game. Guys, before we dive in, hit that like button, Forest fans. Do subscribe to the channel. And again, a Premier League, 23 years in the making. Scott, what do you make of that?
I mean, firstly, congratulations, Forest. I said on my preview for this, I couldn't believe 23 years. Like, it just doesn't feel like it's been that long. I'm sure Forest fans would disagree. There'll be many that haven't seen Forest playing in the top flight. Well, from next season, they won't be able to say that any longer. And I did say in my preview, of those that have watched it, I did have to make a call, and I'd said from the start that Huddersfield were going to win. So I said Huddersfield on penalties just because I was that 50-50 with it. But I did say in my preview, whichever team comes out and plays more to their game on the day, I think takes this one. And I think that's exactly what happened. I really do. I think Nottingham Forest, you saw from the first minute, they were just on it.
They were. I must be completely honest. I missed the first 5-6 minutes of the game because of the Formula One. I love the Formula One. But when I only missed 5 minutes, but they were just dominant. Absolutely dominant. They restricted Huddersfield to very, very little.
Yeah.
Huddersfield did grow into the game, but only with about 5 or 6 minutes left of the first half. They had 2 or 3 quick corners in succession, but you know, couldn't do anything about it. Let's talk about the goal. Let's dive right into it. It's a shame for, you know, obviously Huddersfield and the players specifically, that it's been decided by an own goal. I thought it was a great finish by Yates at first, but sadly the player on loan puts it in the back of his own net.
Yeah, and he does. And I think what you have to say is obviously James Garner with the ball. It was one hell of a ball. It's one of those like just picture perfect balls, isn't it? It's horrible for a defender to defend. And obviously ultimately he scored the own goal, but he can't really be blamed for that because it was just such a prestigious and brilliant ball in. And obviously, you know, he's made it very difficult for the defender. You are right. Yates got the touch to it and maybe it could have been given to him as well. Unfortunately, it wasn't. And I think Yates would have been buzzing about that if he had been given the goal as well, because obviously he did miss 2 chances early on. The header was obviously the main one in the first half where you thought maybe he should have took that one. I'm sure he would have been dying for that goal, but ultimately it doesn't really matter, does it? Because it's got Forest over the line. It's all that was needed. And I want to say a massive shout out to Steve Cooper as well, because you touched on it a little bit. Huddersfield came into it at the end of the first half, but what they also did is in the second half, they started to come into it around the 55-minute mark. They had quite a bit of nice possession. Steve Cooper, he made some good changes, bringing on Max Lowe was an example. And one thing I saw that Forest started to do very well is in the first half, you saw them really kind of pushing on forward quickly. Steve Cooper, I'm confident, got them to slow it down. You saw them playing a bit more possession football. And that's why I think he's a really top manager, because he controlled that game so well. It's not easy to do that in a final either.
He's smashed it. I think it was the 65th, 70th minute. He brought off Davis and brought on Sam Surridge. And Forest just seemed to grow. And then about 30 seconds later, Huddersfield, react, and they make a double substitution of their own, bringing on, of course, Rhodes. And I'm sure a lot of the Forest fans, listen, Rhodes hasn't scored many goals for Huddersfield this season, but he's scored big goals in decisive games, and the Forest fans must have thought, oh, here we go, because you know at this level Jordan Rhodes is lethal. We've seen it for years and years now. But listen, a Forest, I mean, one thing we have to talk about before we end the video is the penalty. Very quickly, my opinion, I was screaming dive. I thought John Moss had nailed it in his last ever game. I thought VAR got it correct. How wrong I was. clear contact. The problem is, though, Toffolo doesn't help himself. He's looking for the contact. He goes over so easy. He dives in the air. If he just stays on his feet and lets Colback smash into his leg, it's a penalty all day. He's tried to do too much, even though there's contact, and I think it's a penalty. I think Forest fans, now that they've won the game, they'll be gracious and say, do you know what? After seeing the replays, I think it's a penalty. It is. Because I think it is. I think the striker, I think he's really let his team down there. Smart strikers, Premier League strikers, get the penalty.
Well, I think the thing is with Toffolo, as I think you've touched on it there, that Toffolo, he's gone down, hasn't he? He's looked for the penalty. And I think that's really what ultimately has gone against him. That's why John Moss has waved it away. And that's why ultimately VAR couldn't really go back on John Moss's decision. Now, I felt there was a much more controversial one, actually, that came 10 minutes later, where I'm still a bit confused about that one, why it wasn't given. To be fair to John Moss, I do want to say his eyesight was very much blocked. He didn't have a clear view on it, but this is why VAR has been brought in. That one, for me, was maybe even more so a penalty. But as you say, if you're a Forest fan, you're not really going to care. You're in the Premier League, happy days. But I think we have to be fair. It is worth mentioning, and Forest fans would love to get your take on that as well. Let's cover one quick thing, because obviously we're, aside from the game, Nottingham Forest, what do you think they can do in the Premier League next year? Because we spoke about Sunderland and what they could achieve in the Championship when they went up in the playoffs. Let's do the same for Forest. What do you think they can achieve?
They've got quite a few players on loan. That worries me slightly as to whether or not they do get them on a permanent. Don't let this dilly-dally for months into the summer. Either secure them now from their parent club or send them back and get replacements. Don't let it get towards the middle or end of July, because don't forget the season's starting early because of the World Cup. You don't have until the middle of August now before the season starts. You've probably got about 7 weeks, 8 weeks now until the season begins. Get it done. They've got to get those loan players done. Get a few experienced players as well.
I think you're right. Obviously we see James Garner going back and rumours that Leicester City want him, guys. We've done a video on that. But, I think maybe if Forest have gone up, that you could see them loaning back to Forest. He's already been embedded there for a couple of years now. And you really do think he could continue his path at Forest now in the Premier League. You also have to obviously look at Spence, who has been absolutely fantastic in this game, but throughout the season as well. And so important to that back five system that Steve Cooper has been implementing at Nottingham Forest. Going back to his parent club, Middlesbrough, but we're hearing that Tottenham are interested, United are interested.
Yes.
It'll be interesting to see if he does go to a big club like that. You don't feel that they'll keep hold of him at just 21 years of age. Again, that could be another loan signing that Forest could then, get once again, which could actually play into Nottingham Forest's hands, because then it frees up more of a transfer budget. And although it's very uncertain what's going to happen in terms of players coming in and out at Nottingham Forest, one thing that makes me confident that maybe they'll do quite well, and I'm backing them actually early statement, I'm backing them to stay up next year because of Steve Cooper alone. I really do think he's a top manager, and he'll figure it out.
I'm glad you said that. The last thing I would say about them potentially staying up next season, if they get off to a rocky start, maybe they lose their first 3 or 4, you don't know. Keep with Cooper. Don't just think, we'll do a Watford and get rid of him and bring in Ranieri and Hodgson. Just stick with him. He's very tactically astute. He knows what he's doing. Does he have the most experience in the Premier League? Probably not compared to other managers. Stick with him if you get a bad start, because you never know. Look at Newcastle.
Yeah, that's it. And last thing I would say, happy third time lucky for Mr. Cooper, who's obviously his third time within the playoffs, his second time within a playoff final. He'll be happy that he's made it third time lucky. Nottingham Forest fans, do us a favour, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. Congratulations, enjoy it. Hopefully, too many, you could go out, you could enjoy it regardless of whether you have work tomorrow or whatever. Hopefully, if you're watching this tomorrow, there's not too many sore heads. But yeah, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and we shall see you on the next one. Goodbye.
Thank you.